Welcome to A Pinch of Basil. I am the most gorgeous host with the most favor. As voted by the boys in Cell Block C, I'm just letting you people know how people feel about me. Thank you, my prison inmates. Anyway, I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Janice Hermson. And how could we do this show without our wonderful chief engineer, who breaks into my computer all the time and fixes whatever needs to be done.
Because
he probably has every
has
password
to.
that I know.
Because he has to.
He has to. Why? Because I'm stupid? Is that what you're saying?
Would I ever say anything like that about you, Basil? I would
never. No.
Never,
You would never
never
say it. You may think it, but you would never certainly say it. That's for sure. We don't forget, we stream this thing live on Facebook. That's right. If you're on Facebook right now, Facebook fans, you can hear me all the time, all around the world. And you can also listen on the TuneIn app or on any phone or device. Once you have the app, just search America Matters and then go to A Pinch of Basil. That's simple. It really is. It doesn't really matter. If you're on the computer, just go to americamatters.us and you can find our little show, A Pinch of Basil. We want to hear from your comments. We want to hear from you on Facebook. We got two great guests today, by the way. We want to hear from you on Facebook. You can get a hold of us that way. You can also get a hold of us by calling the toll-free number at 844-790-8255. 844-790-8255. You can also text us. And Janice, what is that magical text number?
That magical number is 775-237-2266. So give us a text.
Oh, absolutely. And hey, listen, we're being heard all the way around the world, not only on americamatters.us, but we also can be heard all over with our wonderful Facebook on Basil fans, Australia, South Africa, all over the place throughout the UK. But also, speaking of the UK, you can always hear us on Greek Beat Radio.
Greek Beat Radio.
Love my Greek Beat Radio. And also we're on an actual FM station throughout London, and that goes all over the world too. So thank you, Paul, and thank you, Greek Beat Radio, for all the things you do. And I got to be honest with you, there's a couple things I want to talk. We have two awesome guests today. Later in the hour, we're going to go to Dr. Paul Kamitsuka, the infectious disease consultant for the southeastern North Carolina area in New Hanover Regional Medical Center, and happens to be my personal physician as well. And we have our guest who's going to be coming on in 1 second, but before we do, about 9 years ago, I received my first Emmy nod, and I was voicing the ESPN 30 for 30 special. It was called The Legend of Jimmy the Greek. And while I was doing that, I really had a chance to meet some wonderful people. Irv Cross, NFL great. Brent Musburger, just one of the best sports commentators in the history of sports commentating. And one of the most wonderful people that was on the project, Phyllis George. She was crowned Miss America back in 1971, and her career skyrocketed. She hosted the NFL Today with good friend George Veras, who is now the CEO of the Canton Football Hall of Fame. She helped hundreds of women break into the industry, becoming basically breaking the good old boys network of covering sports. And she was very kind to me. She really was, and she helped me try and get my show off the air. She was one of the first people who brought it to Les Moonves, and I'll never forget her kindness. And Phyllis George, we'll definitely miss you. That's for sure.
Good memories for you.
Yeah.
That's great.
It really was. She was a wonderful, tremendous lady, and I liked her very, very much. But listen, we got to go to our guest. And Janice, please do me the honor of introducing our wonderful guest.
Absolutely. Today we have Adam Dunn, who is the author of the novels Rivers of Gold, The Big Dogs, and Saint Underground, the forthcoming, or the novel that has already been released, Fractus Europa, which was edited by Eric C. Anderson and our guest, Adam Dunn. He spent years as a freelance writer cultivating an extensive series of networks among the military, intelligence, law enforcement, and financial communities, and his byline has appeared in 18 publications in 4 countries, some of which include CNN and BBC news along with a number of others. And he apparently has left New York City, probably at this point, not such a bad deal.
No, not at all.
What can I say? We don't like to speak ill, but hey,
Hey, it is
it's
what it
not
is.
the best place to be right now. So we want to welcome our guest, Adam Dunn. Welcome, Adam.
Thanks for having me.
A pleasure.
Are you kidding me? That's fantastic. You left New York, man. Your timing is impeccable.
It was actually several years back.
Ah. Well, it was a good call, right?
Well, tell me, Adam. Listen, we were getting a chance, and I was trying to get into reading some of the stuff, and I was really excited to have you on the air. What prompted you to even write Fractus Europa?
I didn't. Fractus Europa is a collection of short stories about the disintegration of the European Union as told by Europeans inside those countries. My late co-editor and I, Eric Anderson, who unfortunately passed away, he and I were kicking around this idea. We had seen what the crash of '08, the strains that had put on an already fractious European Union, which is a political union more than anything else. It's a regional trading bloc, but it's a political union, and it's very difficult to impose on the European patchwork the kind of real seamless monetary fusing that you would need to create a truly integrated economic and financial bloc out of all of these different regions. And you saw that in 2008. You saw what had the strains that were put on the Union in the crash, and you saw the kind of strains that came out when you had this sort of pseudo iron curtain that ran east to west instead of north to south, and you had industrialized European nations up top, trying to impose austerity on impoverished agricultural ones in the south, and you had that real dissonance going on between the two, and you had it really. You saw the thumbscrews really getting ratcheted down. I mean, in 2011, if you go back to the newscast, barter broke out in Greece. People would,
and we're going to pick up right from Greece because we got to do a couple of these messages from our sponsors, because I am Greek and I'm always all about Greece. So, folks, listen, we'll be right back with more of A Pinch of Basil and our wonderful guest, Adam.
Unable to listen to the whole show? A recording of today's program will be available later today. Visit americamatters.us and click on the podcast link. Now, back to the show.
Oh, we are indeed back. You're listening to Basil all around the world. It is the Pinch of Basil show. And we've been talking to Adam Dunn, author and publisher. And Adam, we were going right into, you were talking about Greece before. I was an idiot for cutting you off, but we had to do this sponsor thing that covers, bills for us. So get back to that. You were talking about this kind of thing all started with Greece.
I just remember that from the newscast in 2011 when we were turning on the feed for CNBC or what have you, and just seeing Athens burning and getting reports about how people were just there was so much economic turmoil that people had simply reverted to barter because they didn't even know whether there was a collapse in a faith in a fiat currency, and that was at a time of very as I said, great economic and financial turmoil, but also greatly monetizing debt as a rescue measure, and we're seeing that again. And I don't know how well or how ill that bodes for the European Union, but I think it doesn't bode very, very well. And you don't have to look any further than today's headlines on anything from the FT or the WSJ, the BBC, the Economist, and see the news that is coming out of the bloc, and it ain't good. And I think they're responding to it as best that they can. But the outlook is, I think to put it kindly, uncertain. And you continue to see more dissonance between member states and the guys in charge in Brussels. And I don't know how long that framework holds together. And if you read Fractus Europa, and as the name implies, there's going to be some change, and there's probably going to be a redrawing of the map. What what we tried to do, Eric and I, with Practice Europa, is just to find out what things would look like on the far side of this, as told by the people who live there. And that's what you get in the book.
Well, the funny thing is I was in Greece at the time when they were burning in the streets. I have a home there. And to be honest with you, I always thought it was a big mistake to have a common currency. That was just my opinion. I never liked the idea, and evidently the Brits didn't like it either. And that's why they always stayed with the sterling and or the pound. And, to be able to go from the drachma to the euro, I just think was the worst mistake. But the thing is, too, that Germany had so much money invested into Greece. And Greece was basically, as I always refer to, Germany's little bitch. And basically whatever they wanted to do, they did. They helped build the highway system, the superhighway system, to get ready for the 2004 Olympics. They wound up going ahead and rebuilding the new airport in Athens, Venizelos. And, and I always thought that it was a little bit crazy with the economy the way it was, that Greece couldn't handle it. Now everyone came in from different parts of from different countries around, and there are no more Greek owners of restaurants or of buildings or of housing. You can, you say, well, what's this restaurant? Oh, it's a Greek restaurant, but it's owned by Poles. And I said, really? And I said, what about this restaurant? Oh, it's owned by Germans. And I said, what about this place? Oh, it's owned by Swedes. And I said, oh, okay. What are the Greeks own? And then they have nothing. So to me, I always thought that the economy in Greece was like, just basically went to hell. And, I think, with England, with Brexit doing what they did, I think it was the right thing to do because the country was split in half. I toured over there and these people, and I say, hey, now just to get on a serious question, what about Brexit? And you mentioned Brexit. And, do you think that was the starting point of the collapse of the European community?
No. It's been happening for years, and Brexit is not necessarily a magic bullet. As a matter of fact, if you read the story from Dr. Peter Heather in Practice Europa about life in post-Brexit England, that is also not very pretty, because if they're going to withdraw, what's that going to look like? Read the story, and you'll see. And you say that you're from Greece, and that there's a lot of outside ownership now of Greek infrastructure. One of the things that I worry about happening if the union really does come apart under increased economic strain is what happens if people want to leave the EU? Well, they're going to pull out, as you say, Greece went from the drachma to the euro. Let's say Greece goes back to the drachma. What do you think is going to happen as they try to stay competitive with every other economy around them? Well, commonsensically, the first thing they do is probably devalue the drachma, which would allow them to try to compete with any surrounding economy, including those that are still in the union. But that means if you are a property owner, or you have assets in Greece, or you have anything that is in Greece that is denominated in drachma, the value of it just went through the floor. What are you going to do?
Yeah, but it's already down the floor as it is already. I mean, there's a house that we have that my aunt left us. It's on the water. It's gorgeous. And maybe 20 years ago, when the drachma was still around, you would have probably paid U.S. dollars, maybe about $100,000. Okay. Now I can buy it for 25. So having the euro, the economy in Greece just went to hell in a handbasket completely. And so for me, I just was, I was always just a little bit upset with it, but she left it to me. So what was I going to do? I'm using it. I have no intention of selling it. One day the properties will increase again and stuff like that. It'll be fine. But I think it's going to be a long time coming. My kids might enjoy that extra money. That's for sure. How many unpublished or half-finished books do you have right now?
Dunn Books now has 10, with another 3 in the pipeline. I've published 3 myself, but I'm growing the imprint. And Practice Europa is our first short fiction anthology. Generally, we publish novels, and we like to publish novels about geopolitical tales, if you will, the kind of political and financial hijinks that people get up to around the world. And unfortunately, the headlines give us no shortage of plot material.
What do you ever get a chance to read your own reviews that you wind up getting?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I said, do you ever get an opportunity to read the reviews that you wind up getting? I was always curious because, with a lot of authors, sometimes they read their reviews and sometimes they don't. I don't like reading my reviews if they're good or bad. It takes about a month for me to pick up the paper and look at it and see what my reviews have. But that's me because I'm, insecure. So I just didn't know if you ever get a chance to read any of your reviews.
The clips come in, and generally I don't read them. I'm usually more interested in reading the reviews of my other authors' books and seeing how well they're doing and trying to push them to push them a little farther and hope that they do a little better. I usually read. I try to stay more focused on my other authors than myself.
Huh. I'm always kind of curious. Because I do a lot of writing, but I do script writing, TV shows and stuff like that and whatnot for film and television. But what kind of schedule do you wind up keeping? And I think the audience is always curious, how a writer writes and puts together. What kind of schedule do you keep?
Well, it's certainly a challenge these days under lockdown, and
to say the least.
So you've got to do a bit of juggling. I do try to shoehorn 2, 3, 4 hours together at a time. As if you're a writer yourself, that writing is necessarily a solitary activity, and you really just need the time the quiet time by yourself to sit down and get a flow. At least if you're writing prose, and of late it is certainly a challenge. When more ordinary times when schools are in session, it's easier for me to put together 3 hours, 4 hours in a block here, or 5 hours. Sometimes there are times when if I have a whole day or a whole weekend, it really just it depends on the mood. If I can lock into a nice rhythm, what would start out as, let's say, thinking about spending 20 or 30 minutes puttering around suddenly becomes 5 or 6 hours. And instead of banging out one page, you've got a whole chapter or a short story or
so
part
true.
of
so true.
a novel
so true.
going on. And you really just,
yeah.
I think it's about where each individual writer finds their rhythm.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I wound up, I was actually finishing up a portion of this script, and it's going back to World War II history. And I get so uptight as I'm writing, I have to think out my thoughts. And I started vacuuming my office. I am the worst housekeeper in the world. I've never picked up a vacuum cleaner in my home, let alone in my office. And I'm starting to clean, and I'm doing windows and everything. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that's the way I need to go in this direction. I wind up running back to the computer, and I just do all this nervous work to get me thinking a little bit. So I always wonder, what authors do. And I've asked many authors that have been on this program before, what do you wind up doing to get creative with this? Is there any type of...
around in my pocket. I do a lot of... I take a lot of notes, and I do a lot of jotting longhand. I'm a big believer in hard copy. And every time I actually sit down and type out a chapter or a manuscript, I'll print the whole thing out hard copy and sit down with a pen and mark it up. To me, I'm a big believer in print, and it's if it's not on paper, it's just not worth it for me.
Yeah, no, I understand. Is there any way? Is there a website for people to go, check out some of your stuff? Are your books, where are they available?
They're available on Amazon and BNN.com, and you can go to dunnbooks.com, UNNBOOKS.com, to learn more about see our catalog, learn more about our authors, and plenty of supplementary reading. Enjoy.
Adam, thanks so much for being part of the Pinch of Basil show. We appreciate it. We hope to see you again real soon. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks, Adam.
Bye-bye. Thank you for having me.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now back to the show.
Oh, we are indeed back with a pinch of basil. Call us at 844-790-8255. For those people who are having hearing problems, that's 844-790-8255. Okay, just want to chime in once in a while. Give us a little ring. And what is that text number, Janice?
Oh, that would be 775-237-2266. Text us now.
And absolutely, you could be. We're here right now. We are heard over in Australia, South Africa, all throughout Europe, because we have AmericaMatters.us that they're listening to, and also on the Basile fans page. That's BASILE FANS, and they're checking us out. And we'll have tens of thousands of viewers watching the show as they always do, and they love us and everything. But listen, we couldn't do any of this without Greek Beat Radio.
Greek Beats Radio. Beats Radio. Beats Radio.
That's right. That's what we pay the big money for those effects, folks. Anyway, I'm glad to be able to share with you again, to be back on the air with you and share, some of the events. My whole June has just basically petered out, and we had to push back because of some of the dates that we had and everything. So keep looking at the schedule. I've been asked by various comedy clubs and also theaters to go ahead and fill in and do some last minute. They want to draw people in. So thank you very much. You guys can always check us out, what we're doing on BasileLive.com. That's BASILELIVE.com. Now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I am very proud to introduce my next guest. A Harvard Medical School graduate, worked at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, was part of the Massachusetts General Hospital Department of Biology, Biological Chemistry, and Molecular Pharmacology at Harvard Medical School. He has a diploma of tropical medicine at the London School, and and part of the London School of Hygiene and Medicine in London, UK. My God, that's where Greek Beat Radio is at. He is the chief infectious disease at Harvard affiliated Department of Veterans Affairs Medical Center and associate physician at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. Did I pronounce that correctly, Paul? Was it Brigham?
You did. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
He is the clinical associate professor at University of North Carolina School of Medicine, infectious disease consultant at Wilmington Health. He is the hospital epidemiologist at New Hanover Regional Medical Center. Ladies and gentlemen, my personal physician and good friend, Dr. Paul Kamitsuka. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on.
Are you kidding me, Paul? First of all, we will not discuss any of my health issues because you make it seem like the sky is falling every time I see you. So we're not going to discuss this. According to you, I should be as thin as this pen. Okay? Paul says, you're 6'2", you should be 97 pounds. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Paul. I appreciate that. No, I got to tell you, Paul, and I know that you work so closely with what's going on, because you work so, like I said, with the infectious disease, and you've been working closely with the hospital and the COVID and 19. I mean, how are things? Are they progressing in a positive way?
So I think, we've been fortunate in this community in terms of the numbers being kept relatively low. And I think the hospital is prepared for cases. We see cases on a day-to-day basis, but all the infrastructure needed to sort of help contain and care for these patients has been sort of diligently worked on over the past couple months. So the key thing, I think, right now, as things are opening up, is the degree to which people will continue to socially distance. Because that is, regardless of how open places are, if you form crowds, then we'll go backwards. And so we're sort of looking very closely at that situation, because a lot of how things progress will depend upon us meaning the general public, and how they behave as they interact more.
Paul, let me ask you a question. As some of the states like Texas and Florida are opening up, you are going to find more people who have COVID. But my question is the coronavirus, but my question is to you, is there an increase of people actually having the disease or having this virus because there's more testing going on?
I think more testing, very much a part of that picture. Yeah, no question about it. It wasn't long ago where we had to really parse out the tests in a very limited manner because we just didn't have many. And but now the availability is much better. And also the criteria that we use to test has broadened a lot. Before, we would only test people who had fever and cough or shortness of breath and who had other risk factors like travel to some place where they were having an outbreak. And so we undoubtedly missed a lot of positive cases. And as you know, asymptomatic spread is common. But now we've broadened that net, so to speak, so that a variety of symptoms, in addition to fever and cough, things like muscle aches, sore throat, headache, vomiting and diarrhea, all those, if you have any of those symptoms.
Who have you found to be most vulnerable right this moment? Because it seems that the various categories that they have between the ages of this and this and this and this, who is more susceptible right now getting it?
Who's susceptible? Who's
more? Yeah, what
age
age group? Well, is it more the senior citizens? Is it more of the 40 to 49 group?
No. I think a good question. But I think every age group is susceptible to getting it. It's just that certain age groups are more likely to get severe disease, okay? So you take children, for example. They're susceptible to getting it, but many of them are without symptoms, but they can spread it. On the other hand, people who are especially over the age of 65, they're not only susceptible to getting it, but also they're much more susceptible to having more severe disease. The kind of pneumonias that require hospitalization than people who are younger, and likewise people with underlying medical problems are more at risk for the severer manifestations of the disease.
Do you think that we could have found, if we had more early warning, that we could have done something different as far as, you being the expert? I mean, do you blame maybe perhaps China not sharing some of the difficulties that were back either in October, that they could have said, hey, you know what, guys, be aware, this is going down. And, I mean, do you find some blame to China not doing that?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't think at this point the blame game is productive. The reality is this has become a global pandemic. Something like this was bound to happen, and every country on earth has been aware that this is a possibility. I think in hindsight, there were a number of lost opportunities, for sure, not only in terms of better preparation, in terms of getting the tests out, in terms of getting medical supplies out. Our poor colleagues up in New York were having to literally practice medicine under battleground conditions because they were being overwhelmed, just like they were in Wuhan, China. Yes, there's this, but hopefully we can turn this into lessons learned. By no means the only pandemic that's going to be coming down the pike. I think what we're realizing is that viruses, especially viruses like the SARS-CoV-2 causes COVID-19, this is the third iteration of this since 2002. So in a short period of time, we've had 3 coronaviruses, which each of them threatened to become a pandemic. It's just that this one is particularly good at spreading from person to person. And also causing asymptomatic infection in many people, which accounts for spread, the undetected spread, which was unlike the others to this.
Did Paul pause on this?
I think he did, yeah. I think he did for
Paul,
the moment.
are you still with us?
Yeah.
I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Good. Yeah, I can hear you.
We have a question from the audience, too, when we get a little break here.
Okay. How are we doing on the break time? I don't see any time.
You got a little over a minute.
Yep.
Okay.
And one of the questions we've got is whether or not the tests are reliable. So you can save that for after the break if you'd like.
Okay, yeah. What we're going to do is we're going to wind up asking Paul some more, Dr. Kamitsuka, I'm sorry, some more questions. But because I do have a lot more questions that I think need to, a lot of people need to know what's going on. I know a lot of
absolutely
senior citizens, and I want to protect as many senior citizens as possible, especially my mother-in-law and aunts and uncles. Who are, I got to protect them. I really do. So for me, it's very, very important. So, but Paul, we're going to be back after you and I got to discuss where we're going for sushi as soon as those damn restaurants open up.
All right, sounds good.
Because I think you and I need to share a bottle of scotch and to have some sushi real soon. That's for sure. Folks, make sure, absolutely. Folks, we're going to be back after these messages with our wonderful guest and good friend, Dr. Paul Kamitsuka. We'll be right back with more.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now back to the show.
Oh, we are indeed back to the show. You're listening to A Pinch of Basil. I am Rosemary and Herb's son, Basil, and I am on the air with all of you, listening around the world from Australia, all the way through Europe, South Africa, South America, all of North America. Even the Eskimos are listening to us in the polls. So, folks, thank you so much. And you have any questions? Not a problem. Go ahead and text us. And what's that text number, Janice?
That would be 775-237-2266.
Or you can call us at 844-790-8255. Janice, you said you had a couple of questions for Dr. Kamitsuka.
We have quite a few here from the audience. Adrian would like to know, can you please ask the doctor how reliable the tests are?
Okay, so good question. And the more we use them, the more this becomes an issue. So to diagnose COVID-19, typically we use something called a PCR test. Now, a PCR test is a molecular test. It's a swab, usually up the nose. And it's looking not for live virus, but for the RNA, the genetic material of the virus. And what we're finding is that the test is most accurate within 1 day or so of the onset of symptoms. But if you test somebody who is infected but has not had symptoms yet, and it's been, say, 3 or 4 days before they get symptoms, then the test sensitivity, the ability to capture and diagnose the infection goes way down. This is a problem. And for example, the test that's being used in the White House currently to test staff members, it may miss 15%, which is a significant number. Unfortunately, that is the best test that class of test is the best test we have. The real world sensitivity, for example, in China was somewhere in the range of 60 to 80%. Meaning you could miss up to 40% of cases. So that's the diagnostic test. Now, there's another series of tests that are out now, which are the antibody tests. And what those antibody tests look at is, has your body produced antibodies that recognize COVID-19 such that it would indicate potentially that you've already been infected with COVID-19? And those tests also suffer from issues not only of sensitivity if you catch the patient too early in the course, but also specificity, meaning how specific are they for the coronavirus that causes COVID-19. And it turns out, for example, in the United States, there are 4 other coronaviruses that commonly circulate, which typically cause the common cold. Well, some of the tests that are out there will cross-react with antibodies to these other coronaviruses, so that just because you have a positive test doesn't say for certain that you, in fact, already have had COVID-19.
Wow. It's complicated.
It is complicated. And what was the other question, too,
Well,
Janice?
I've got quite a few, but this one is actually relative to that. Has it been proven that if you have the COVID-19 antibodies, that you can't or you can get it again? Has it been proven either way?
So let's see. I broke up there a bit. So
okay.
Is the question, if you've had COVID-19, can you get it again?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we think that you are going to be immune at least for some period of time. We don't know this for sure. We just haven't seen this virus long enough to be able to know that. But if it behaves like the other coronaviruses, like the MERS virus, the Middle East respiratory syndrome virus, or the initial coronavirus back in 2002, 2003, then one might expect that you may be immune to reinfection maybe 2 or 3 years, but we don't know that for sure again for this virus. So yes, we think you probably will have some immunity, but again, one of the most certain things about this virus is that we've got a lot to learn. We don't know, and every day it seems the data changes a bit. But I think most of us feel that you will have immunity for some period of time.
Thank goodness. Janice, what are some of the other questions?
One more. In the UK, a lot of Greeks have died, and most were men in their 50s. Could there be any explanation for this?
That's an interesting. I probably should ask Basile about that one.
Well, to be honest with you, we're idiots, and basically we don't listen to anything that anyone tells us. To be careful, we throw caution in the wind, if you will. You know what? I can't really say. I know sometimes I think it's just happens. If you were Italian, you may say the same thing. I know that you and I have friends in Italy and relatives and through Greece, and we've all lost someone or know someone who lost someone, and it just hit them in a certain way.
I don't know of any data yet that really suggests, for example, a genetic predisposition, for one ethnic group to be more susceptible to the virus and the ill effects that it can cause. I suspect it had more to do with some of the factors that Basile was just alluding to, just luck and perhaps crowding, exposure, that type of thing, as opposed to something more broad.
Yeah, and I think also if you're careful, folks, this is the same bloody thing I've been telling people all the time. Wash your damn hands, okay? You don't know whatever you touch, what someone else has touched, what their hands have been. So wash your hands all the time. Even when I walk through my office, I decide to wash my hands. I might touch something that maybe someone else touched that I wasn't aware of. Wash your hands. Make sure that when you go grocery shopping, wear some gloves, wear a mask. It's real simple. Now, I have been scolded because they say, well, Basile, where's your mask if I go grocery shopping? Because I look like I'm going to stick up the place. When I come in with a mask, I go to my bank, I'm there with my mask. I said, please don't shoot me. I'm just trying to make a deposit. So you just got to be smart about what you're doing. And listen, a little, just use that thing, that lump about 3 feet above your ass. That's all I'm telling you. If you use your head, you'll be all right. As far as the president is now experimenting with some of the medications that were used for various fevers back like 40, 50 years ago. And I know a lot of doctors are saying you shouldn't take this because it's either bad for your heart, bad for other things over a certain age. Paul, what do you say about that? A little preventive maintenance using that drug?
Yeah, I think, in medicine, we prescribe anything. We need to make sure that there is good data to support use. Because anything that you take, it could be an aspirin or any over-the-counter medicine, they can have potential side effects. So every prescription is a risk-benefit ratio. And I think in the case of hydroxychloroquine, the data so far suggests that it really is not effective against this virus. It has really been studied in terms of the preventive use. So I think sort of the first rule is to, before you do anything, you got to make sure that not only is it's effective, but also it's safe. And we've had a lot of red flags about the safety. You mentioned heart. One of the things that hydroxychloroquine can do is to make yourself, some people, much more susceptible to potentially fatal heart rhythm disturbances. And you'd hate to sort of take something which may not work and then suffer a heart attack consequence like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, no one wants that. And before we wind up letting you go, because John Glenn's wife, Annie Glenn, passed away, they said from coronavirus,
yes.
but she was also 100 years old. So I'm not saying she could have lived longer or shorter, whatever the case was, but the woman was 100 years old, but she was at a nursing facility, a nursing home. Know us Greeks, we don't put our people in nursing homes. It's not, we don't do that. But so, we know we have nothing to worry about. But on a serious note, I mean, it's affecting, what are the nursing homes? What are they not doing to protect the aged, that are there, so the seniors that are there?
Well, that's a good question. The reality is that wherever you have people congregating, whether it's a nursing home, a prison, or a hospital, it's very difficult to socially distance. And in addition, because you can have contagiousness with this virus without any symptoms, you don't know who's sick and who's not. And so, and many of these facilities are not equipped to have adequate isolation rooms. People, share rooms, they have communal dining, and so forth, and so on. So the opportunities for a virus that's silently spreading through a facility to cause disease becomes very large. The other thing, too, is many people, as they become more elderly, they don't display the same kinds of symptoms, or they may suffer from things like dementia where they can't express that either. So I think many nursing facilities are highly challenged. I think the only solution to this is very frequent testing in facilities, and not only testing all of the residents, but also the staff, because after all, it's probably the staff most likely, or in the past families that would be bringing the virus in.
Paul, I gotta stop you there, Paul, because you gotta go for a hard close. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here.
Oh, sure.
And being part of this show. We're going to have you back on again whenever you have a chance. Reminders, folks, don't forget to listen every week on Tuesdays from 6 to 7 New York City time. We can be heard all around the world on americamatters.us. Check us out on Basile Fans. Make sure you hit us. And I got to tell you, Paul Kamitsuka, you've been a wonderful guest. You are listening to A Pinch of Basile